Today, we explore 6 times influencers recorded their last moments. From an influencer tearing down a desert highway in a muscle car at nearly 200 miles per hour, to a survival YouTuber who set out to prove he could outlast the desert alone, but met his end in the most unexpected way. It was July 18th, 2019, in Phoenix, Arizona. The setting was a rented suburban house with a backyard swimming pool. The pool had a shallow end and a deep end that reached approximately 9 feet. The afternoon temperature was above 100 degrees. 23-year-old Dylan Carter operated a growing illusion-based account with just over 5,000 followers. His videos focused on recreating visual tricks and explaining how they worked. Engagement had slowed in recent weeks, and he had been planning something more ambitious. That day, he announced he would live stream a walking on water illusion and reveal exactly how it was done. Several of Dylan's friends were present to help film content for his social media channel. The illusion used thick, clear acrylic panels placed just beneath the surface of the pool, designed to support weight only when properly secured. Dylan had bought 3 thick sheets earlier that week and positioned 2 of them so their ends rested along the pool's tile, coping with rubber padding underneath. The third panel was placed between the outer sheets to close the gap. Even though it had no clamps, brackets, or structural support, it relied only on friction and overlap to stay aligned. During setup, the panel shifted along the smooth tile edge, clearly showing it could move under his weight. But he chose to reposition it instead of anchoring it. He knew the center section wasn't secured, but decided to continue anyway, believing slow movement would keep it from sliding. Shortly after 3 in the afternoon, he went live while friends filmed from the patio. He explained the illusion to viewers while standing on panels he had not fully secured. He stepped onto the first section carefully as the acrylic flexed beneath him. From the camera's angle, it looked like he was standing directly on the water, and the live stream overlay showed viewers warning him about the shifting panels as he continued toward the unsecured center section. As he transferred his weight onto the middle sheet, the added lateral force caused it to shift despite the rubber padding. It slid several inches sideways and rotated as one overlapping edge lost contact. His right foot slipped as the surface tilted beneath him. He attempted to regain balance, but the panel continued to slide. He fell sideways toward the edge of the pool. During the fall, his head struck the rigid tile, coping with significant force before the rest of his body entered the water. The sound of the impact was audible in the recording. He surfaced briefly, but appeared confused and uncoordinated, failing to swim toward the edge. Within seconds, his body went limp and slipped beneath the surface again. One of his friends entered the water immediately and pulled him to the edge. He was unconscious, but still breathing irregularly. Emergency services were called within moments. Paramedics transported him to a trauma center, where imaging revealed a severe skull fracture and intracranial hemorrhage caused by the impact with the tile coping. Despite emergency surgery, brain swelling progressed over the next 48 hours. 2 days later, he was pronounced dead due to complications of traumatic brain injury. Authorities ruled the incident accidental, citing unsafe placement of structural materials over a swimming pool and lack of proper mechanical securing mechanisms. No criminal charges were filed. The video was removed from the platform shortly afterward. It was July 22, 2017, in Queens, New York. A small basement restaurant known for extreme spice challenges had built a reputation among online creators who wanted dramatic reactions on camera. The walls were lined with photos of customers drenched in sweat, and a chalkboard near the counter listed simple rules: no milk, no refunds, stop whenever you want. Staff members were used to seeing people quit halfway through a challenge, coughing and laughing while cameras kept rolling. 26-year-old Priya Kapoor arrived that evening with a small camera crew to film a live stream for her channel. She had built a modest following by eating painfully spicy foods and reacting for views. Although her audience was not massive, she treated every challenge like a personal test of endurance. She often told viewers she had never quit a challenge, even when it became uncomfortable. That reputation mattered more to her than the restaurant's warnings or the limits printed clearly on the wall. The dish she ordered was called the Reaper Bowl, a thick, oil-heavy soup loaded with Carolina Reaper peppers, Trinidad scorpion peppers, and concentrated capsaicin extract. The owner explained that most participants stopped early because the heat caused uncontrollable coughing and throat irritation. He warned her directly, "If the coughing starts, stop eating." Priya agreed on camera, nodded to her crew, and told viewers she planned to beat the record time. The live stream chat began filling with encouragement, urging her to push through the pain. When the broadcast started, she began eating faster than recommended. Within minutes, the capsaicin triggered violent coughing fits. Her face flushed red, and tears streamed down her cheeks as viewers watched in real time. Instead of slowing down, she kept scooping more soup, pausing only long enough to gasp for air between coughs. The owner reminded her again that she could stop at any moment, but she waved him off and reached for another bite. Comments on the screen urged her not to quit, and she leaned into the pressure, trying to finish quickly. During one intense coughing fit, she inhaled sharply while holding a spoonful of soup near her mouth. A thick piece of pepper and liquid entered her airway. At first, it looked like normal coughing, but within seconds, the violent coughing triggered a sudden airway spasm, and she could no longer speak or pull in air. She stood up suddenly, knocking her chair backward and grabbing her throat. The owner rushed behind her and attempted abdominal thrusts while her crew continued filming in confusion. Some food material was expelled, but she remained unresponsive and collapsed moments later with only a faint pulse. Emergency services were called immediately. Paramedics arrived within minutes, cleared food from her airway using suction, and provided oxygen while transporting her to the hospital. During transport, her heart rhythm became unstable due to prolonged oxygen deprivation, and resuscitation efforts began. She was pronounced dead shortly after arrival. The medical examiner ruled the death accidental, determining that complications from choking and aspiration during the extreme eating challenge caused hypoxic brain injury. The restaurant closed temporarily during the investigation, and the live stream was removed, leaving behind a recording of a moment that had started as entertainment and ended in a preventable tragedy. It was October 14th, 2017, near Bakersfield, California. A rural stretch of State Route 43 was known among car enthusiasts for its long, straight sections and minimal early morning traffic. The road cut through flat desert terrain with wide visibility in both directions. 32-year-old Derek Collins prepared to live stream a high-speed test drive of his modified 2018 Dodge Challenger Hellcat. Derek worked as a software engineer but had built a substantial online following through his automotive content channel, where he posted videos of car modifications and street performance tests. He had accumulated over 7,000 subscribers who watched his weekly uploads. Derek was known for pushing limits and had received multiple warnings from his audience about safety, but he consistently defended his driving skills. The Challenger had been modified extensively. Derek had installed a supercharger upgrade that increased the engine output to over 900 horsepower, upgraded the suspension and brakes, and added a roll cage. He had mounted 3 cameras for the stream, one on the dashboard facing him, one aimed at the speedometer, and one attached to the hood facing forward. Derek started his live stream at 6:15 in the morning. Nearly 8,000 viewers were watching live as he accelerated onto the highway. He told his audience he was going to attempt a top-speed run and try to break 200 miles per hour. He reached 100 miles per hour within seconds, then 150, then 180. The engine roared as viewers watched the speedometer climb. At 192 miles per hour, he glanced at the camera and grinned. What Derek did not see was the farm truck that had entered the highway from a side access road roughly 800 feet ahead. The truck was traveling at 45 miles per hour, hauling a trailer loaded with equipment. By the time Derek saw the truck, he had about 3 seconds to react. He screamed and yanked the steering wheel to the left, attempting to swerve into the opposing lane. The Challenger's rear end lost traction, and the car began to rotate. Derek overcorrected, and the vehicle spun completely sideways before leaving the roadway. It rolled 6 times across the desert scrub. The live stream continued broadcasting chaotic flashes of ground, sky, and metal. Derek's screaming stopped abruptly after the 3rd roll. The car came to rest upside down, 70 feet from the highway. A passing motorist called emergency services immediately. Highway patrol and paramedics arrived within 12 minutes. Derek was still strapped into his seat, unconscious and not breathing. The roll cage had protected the cabin structure, but the force of the impacts had caused severe trauma. Paramedics extracted him and began resuscitation efforts, but he showed no response. He was transported to a medical center where he was pronounced dead 30 minutes after arrival. The medical examiner determined that he had suffered a broken neck and traumatic brain injury during the rollover. Highway patrol closed the section of road for investigation, and Derek's vehicle modifications were reviewed as part of the crash analysis. The truck driver was not charged, as he had been operating legally. Investigators concluded the crash resulted from excessive speed during a live-streamed run, closing the case after mechanical and roadway reviews. It was August 18th, 2019, in Acapulco, Mexico. A cliff diving site along the southern coast overlooked a narrow rocky cove where waves rolled in between steep stone walls. The location had long attracted tourists who gathered to watch experienced divers leap from the marked platform high above the water, timing their jumps carefully with the incoming swell. 28-year-old Owen Prescott had arrived in Acapulco 3 days earlier to prepare for what he called his biggest dive yet. Owen had built a following of over 8,000 subscribers on his Extreme Sports channel, where he documented cliff diving, base jumping, and other high-risk activities. Recently, his views had slowed, and he wanted something bigger than his previous stunts. The established diving platform at the site stood 110 feet above the water, and professionals had used it for decades. The depth below that point was familiar to local divers and depended heavily on tide and wave conditions. Above that official platform, the cliff face continued upward to a narrow natural rock ledge roughly 130 feet above the water. The ledge was not designed for diving and had never been approved for use. The water below it had not been measured for that height. Instead of using the established 110-foot platform, Owen decided to climb to the higher natural ledge. Local divers warned him that the extra height made the jump far more dangerous. They explained that the cove did not consistently provide enough depth for a 130-foot dive, especially if the tide was not at its peak. Owen dismissed their concerns. He insisted that he had done similar dives before and believed he could control his entry. He did not check the tide chart that afternoon. He chose to jump during smaller wave conditions because he preferred calmer water for filming. He scheduled the dive for late afternoon so the lighting would look better on camera. He set up 3 cameras, one mounted on the cliff, one positioned on a boat below, and one handheld by his girlfriend. At 5:30, he went live. Over 15,000 people tuned in to watch. Standing at the edge of the narrow ledge, Owen addressed the camera. Some local divers shouted up at him, telling him not to jump from that height. He waved them off. After a few deep breaths, he stepped back and ran forward. He launched himself off the cliff. At first, his form looked controlled, but the extra height increased his speed more than he anticipated. As he descended, his body began rotating slightly forward. Divers watching from below immediately realized his angle was wrong. He entered the water feet first, but his upper body was tilted forward. The impact was violent. He did not resurface. Divers jumped in immediately and reached him within seconds. They pulled him to the surface, but he was unconscious. He was not breathing and had no pulse. CPR began on the boat as they rushed toward shore. Paramedics continued resuscitation efforts for 18 minutes without success. He was transported to a hospital where he was pronounced dead shortly after arrival. The investigation concluded that the fatal injuries were consistent with excessive dive height and unsafe water conditions. Authorities stated that the jump had been attempted from an unapproved location well above the established professional limit. The live stream had captured the entire event. Local officials later reinforced safety restrictions at the site and warned visitors not to attempt dives beyond the approved 110-foot platform. What had been intended as a record-setting stunt ended as a preventable tragedy caused by ignored warnings and unnecessary risk. It was November 11th, 2019, in Portland, Oregon. The challenge was being live-streamed from a small apartment in the Hawthorne district, a one-bedroom unit that served as both living space and filming studio. The walls were covered with motivational posters and cameras positioned at multiple angles. 27-year-old Jordan Ellison had built a substantial online presence as a productivity and self-improvement influencer with 5,000 followers. Jordan promoted extreme discipline and mental toughness strategies, often pushing personal limits to demonstrate principles. Jordan had quit a job in marketing 2 years earlier to focus on content creation full-time. The No Sleep Challenge was intended to run for 72 hours straight, during which Jordan would continue working on various tasks, exercising, reading, and engaging with the audience without any sleep. Jordan had promoted the event for 2 weeks, framing it as a demonstration of mental strength and what the human mind could endure. Several sponsors had signed on, including an energy drink company and a nootropic supplement brand. Jordan had attempted shorter sleep deprivation challenges before, once staying awake for 36 hours, and believed this longer challenge was the natural next step. The stream began at 6 in the morning on a Wednesday. Jordan appeared energetic and focused, explaining the plan for the next 3 days. The schedule included work sessions, meal preparation, exercise routines, and constant engagement with viewers. A timer in the corner of the screen counted the hours awake. The first day went smoothly. Jordan worked on emails, filmed additional content, did a workout routine, and prepared meals while maintaining constant interaction with viewers. The energy level remained high, supported by caffeine and the excitement of the challenge. Jordan took cold showers throughout the day to stay alert and did jumping jacks whenever fatigue began to set in. By the end of day 1, Jordan showed only minor signs of tiredness, but remained coherent and focused. The second day showed clear signs of strain. Jordan's movements slowed, speech became less steady, and fatigue was visible despite continued interaction with viewers. By the evening of day 2, Jordan had been awake for 38 hours. On the third day, symptoms intensified. Eyes appeared bloodshot, coordination declined, and small mistakes became frequent, including knocking over objects while working at the desk. As the hours passed, Jordan began showing signs of severe sleep deprivation. Viewers watched as attention drifted, and long pauses interrupted conversation. Jordan mentioned seeing movement in the corners of the room, and occasionally turned toward sounds that were not present. The behavior was brushed off as exhaustion, but the stream captured a clear decline in focus and awareness. By midnight, speech was heavily slurred, and sentences became difficult to complete. At 1:15 a.m., 67 hours into the challenge, Jordan stiffened briefly while standing near the kitchen and collapsed forward onto the floor. The fixed camera continued recording as the apartment fell silent. Paramedics arrived at 1:40 a.m. and attempted resuscitation before transporting Jordan to a medical center where he was pronounced dead at 2:30 a.m. The medical examiner ruled the cause of death as a fatal cardiac arrhythmia triggered by extreme stimulant intake and prolonged sleep deprivation. An undiagnosed underlying heart condition was later identified as a contributing factor. The platform removed the video from public view, and the companies that sponsored the extreme challenge faced legal scrutiny. The incident prompted renewed scrutiny of extreme live stream challenges, with investigators concluding that prolonged stimulant use and physiological stress had created a preventable risk. It was June 8, 2019, in the desert near Barstow, California. The desert stretched for thousands of square miles of harsh terrain, with summer temperatures regularly exceeding 110 degrees Fahrenheit during the day. The area was remote, with long distances between roads and minimal cell phone coverage in many sections. 29-year-old Ryan Hawthorne had driven out to the desert alone to film a 7-day survival challenge. Ryan had built a following of over 7,000 subscribers on his outdoor survival and bushcraft channel. He posted videos about wilderness skills, primitive camping, and survival techniques. Ryan had quit his job as an electrician 18 months earlier to pursue content creation full-time. He prided himself on his knowledge of survival tactics and his ability to endure harsh conditions. The challenge was straightforward: survive alone in the desert for 7 days with minimal supplies, demonstrating water procurement, shelter building, and desert navigation skills. Ryan had brought a tarp, a knife, a metal container, a small amount of food, 3 gallons of water, his camera equipment, and a satellite phone for emergencies. He had scouted the general area 2 weeks earlier and believed he knew where to find additional water sources. The first 2 days went according to plan. Ryan found a location near a rock formation that provided some shade. He set up his tarp as a sun shelter and organized his supplies. The temperature reached 112 degrees. He rationed his water to about half a gallon per day and filmed segments about desert plants and survival priorities. He appeared confident and in control. The 5th day was critical. Ryan woke up severely dehydrated. His morning update showed him struggling to speak clearly. His eyes appeared sunken, and his movements were slow. He had less than half a gallon of water remaining. He told the camera he was going to make an attempt to find water at a location about 4 miles away where he thought there might be a cattle tank. He packed his remaining water, the satellite phone, and 1 camera. Ryan began hiking, filming periodically as he walked. The footage showed him moving slowly, stopping frequently to rest. By midday, the temperature had reached 115 degrees. Ryan's speech and his updates became increasingly slurred and confused. He mentioned feeling dizzy and nauseous. Ryan continued filming for another few minutes, speaking directly to the camera. He said he had made a mistake and should have stayed at his shelter. His words were barely coherent. He apologized to his family and his followers. The camera remained recording as he slumped against the bush and stopped moving. Hikers discovered Ryan's body 3 days later, 6 miles from his original shelter. Search and rescue teams were called to the location. Paramedics confirmed Ryan had been dead for approximately 72 hours. The medical examiner determined he had died from severe dehydration and heat stroke. The footage was recovered and later used by wilderness safety organizations to demonstrate the dangers of underestimating desert conditions. His channel was taken immediately to discourage anyone planning to do the same. What began as a demonstration of survival skills ended as a documented reminder that preparation and knowing when to quit can mean the difference between life and death. Thanks for watching. Enjoy this video? Click more